Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Let's hop in. Today is Monday, July 25th, and the festival is going on at the moment, and I'm hoping I'll just be able to get lucky and get at least what I want to get out of this festival very quickly, because I've not been playing a lot of it off screen. Instead, I've been moving over my phone from a Galaxy S9 to an S21 FE, which is a bit of a transition um, um, between having an SD card, a micro SD card, and not having a micro SD card, which Samsung has been forcing that or trying to push that idea for years now, and there's just really not the best offer. I could have gotten the S20 FE. I thought, honestly, I had bought the S20 FE, but yeah. I will say Android 12 is quite an improvement in some features, but it's not major changes really. Uh, so that and I don't really expect Android to add a ton of new features. The one feature that's still a problem is I just want my phone to go into speakerphone mode when you're making a call, always. And there seems to be just no way to do that anymore. It's been programmed out. There was an app that would do it. That app does not work anymore. Uh, it's annoying for people who really appreciate the speakerphone to have to hit the button when that's what you're going to want every single time. There's zero times I want to put a phone up to my head like I'm holding a hand phone, and I don't want to have Bluetooth headsets or wired headsets, which I don't think. Yeah, there isn't even a wired 3mm port, so it would have to be a USB-C headset wired. I just don't want to have that around or in my ears at all times. So at some point in early August, they're saying a dual mode that has no effect on rank will be added. Great. They needed that from day one. A setting to show only show dual animations the first time. I wonder if that's the first time per game or per just uh, life of the player. And then daily missions will be partially adjusted. And then a Duelist Cup event will happen. Alright. But yeah, the thing that's been slowing me down on the process as far as uh, making progress and moving my phone over is just that I have a massive amount of Chrome tabs open on my cell phone, and the way I tried to transfer things over, I think, caused some instability, and so it was running a little sluggish and a little slow for a brand new phone, but I think I've fixed that. I'm also experimenting with limiting the amount of charge time to 85%. Not charge time as much as charge percentage. So to try and make the battery really last on this phone. Typically what happens with me is the batteries get shot because the phone is just always plugged in. It's always charging. It's always going up from up to 100%, which theoretically limiting it to 85% would give it a lot more life. Also, the screen burns in on all of my phones, and I just use them a lot, so that they do get pretty awful as far as my S9, to a point where I don't really think I would want to give away my old phone. Um, just because I don't think most people would get as much use out of it, even if I was to try and recycle it or give it away. But yeah, I'm going through a whole lot of web pages and just cleaning up things, and it's kind of a sad moment in my life, because what this effectively is doing is having me go through a bunch of pages that I opened for projects and recognizing that the world has changed quite a bit as far as the availability of electronic components and gadgets, and in a lot of ways for the past 3 or 4 years I've been getting into these maker gadgets and been ambitiously thinking about a couple of projects, and I'm potentially giving up, or have found better solutions on 2 of those projects, and one of them is just still going to be on the back burner, which is my server, which even that, potentially by the time I get back to it, will have a better solution. But yeah, the world has improved slightly as far as gadgets and projects are concerned. Making some of my ideas and projects less likely to be useful. And that's what most of these projects are. I actually decided to buy something from the UK that is just basically a piece of art, and I've been waiting probably over 10 years to buy this, mostly because the UK British pound was just so much higher in valuation than the US dollar, that it was never just ridiculously too expensive, but it was expensive enough. I got this for about like $30, so definitely it's not like brand new expensive art, but I feel like it was like $60-$70 10 years ago. Maybe it was $30 10 years ago, and maybe $30 today is just not the same $30 in my mind. But yeah, I decided to finally pull the trigger on that, and it's a piece of art, and buying art in general is difficult because it's just kind of like, it's just gonna sit there, it's just gonna look pretty. But that tab had been open for probably 10 years, maybe slightly less, and I was just like, all right, I either need to pull the trigger on this or give this up forever. And if anything, that is an interesting, like, long run experiment on just delayed gratification for me personally, as to, hey, if I wait a really, really long time, will I lose interest in this? Is it a passing whim? Is it not? Certainly I have had some passing whims. I'm sure everybody has. But generally speaking, I think I'm fairly consistent and solid as far as things I want, and that desire does not come and go, or go even after 10 years. It might slightly have changed, or evolved, but that's it. Of course, then if I think I want something and then I find something's better, then I'll definitely replace this. Suffice it to say, it definitely proves to me, myself, if perhaps no one else, that I'm hardly like a little kid where they see something, they have no idea what it is, and they still want it. Now, I don't know if ownership is even the thing that drives kids to think that way or be that way, as much as it might literally just be interaction. If you were to, say, go to a library and let a kid read a book, would they, at that point, well, a better comparison would probably be to if they were to go to a library and rent a video game. Would they be okay with just playing that video game and not owning it? And I think the answer for most kids is probably yes, because I definitely remember back in the day when I was a kid that there was a lot of rentals, movie rentals and things like that, and those were huge ripoffs, certainly, but I never really felt the need to go to that next tier of collector who would have said, I have to own this movie, I have to watch this movie multiple times for normal video rentals or even video game rentals. Like, I definitely rented a decent number of video games and played them and was not particularly impressed with them. Generally, it was more of a case where if a video game was available for rent, it tended to be the bottom of the barrel games anyways. They tended not to have high availability for good games. Guess we'll activate that effect and go ahead and just banish that card, I guess. That was not necessary. On the other hand, certainly the anime DVDs I bought were never available in rental shops, and had they been available in rental shops, well, there were a few, but not a lot. Had they been available in rental shops, I would have watched them once and then probably still regretted not buying them, because the anime DVDs I own now, and even today, if you were to buy an anime DVD, the odds are still somewhat high that you would never be able to get that DVD or watch that DVD in some other form factor with any consistency. It is definitely a lot better, and there definitely are streaming services, but a lot of the old shows and smaller niche shows are not on those streaming services. The big shows are. If you just want to go back and watch Sailor Moon, that's something you can do, certainly. But if you wanted to watch a Sailor Moon spinoff that only a few thousand people have ever seen in the first place, that's going to be a different thing. In particular, if you wanted to watch a specific variation or DVD of it, version of it, that's not going to be a thing. There isn't a lot of demand for that, of course. Anyways, I need to continue moving forward here with progress as I'm playing. So yeah, I've just been messing on my phone over the weekend. I did play more Breath of the Wild, and I did a different Divine Beast, and I will just slightly spoil the game to say, it seems to me like the Divine Beast in the top left of the map was way easier than the Divine Beast in the bottom left of the map. I've also revealed, I think, the entire map, going out of a special going out of my way to reveal the whole map, which I think, is what they want you to do. And they talk about the sword that concealed the darkness being hidden in the forest, and now that I've revealed the map, I've seen the forest, and they've gone out of their way to make it difficult, if not impossible, to actually just glide into the forest and look into the forest and see what's there, which really highlights the flaw in the logic that exists in Breath of the Wild. It first and foremost is a game about gliding, where that breaks the whole idea of having mazes, even though I've now seen that there are quite a few mazes. I definitely broke at least one, by just flying into it. Although arguably I flew into the wrong opening, and it looks like I could have just walked in, but maybe not. It'd be interesting if somebody said that the mazes were like dynamic, so that wherever you started, the maze reconfigured itself. But I seriously doubt that's the case. But yeah, the mazes are broken by being able to climb to high places and towers, which you could have easily just fixed that by having shields and like visual blocker mirages on top of the mazes, so that you couldn't look down in them, or you just have all the mazes and everything higher in the sky or under the ground, so that the open world is just not connected to the mazes. Then I will say also, it feels like the number of missions in the top left of the map were nowhere as many as the number of missions in the bottom left of the map. So again, it just feels like you definitely don't want to go to the bottom left of the map until you are pretty well done with the game. Now, defeating the second Divine Beast gave me a second ability, and I used it up its 3 times options. And I said, I've just got to pull the trigger on this and figure out if you just use it up 3 times, and then that's the only 3 times you can use it for the entire gameplay, or if there's some sleeping effect or instructions or prompt that'll pop up once you've used it up 3 times. So I used it up 3 times, and then it started to recharge. So basically it's 3 abilities, an ability you can use 3 times, and then you have to wait about a minute, 2, maybe 3 or 4, and then it recharges, and then you get another 3 uses. But if you sit on like 2 uses or 1 uses, it does not recharge back up to 3. You have to go all the way down to 0, and the instructions do not explain that. Very little is explained in Breath of the Wild. It's really not a good like Zelda game for a new console. It's really not a good Zelda game in general, by my definition. There is incredible logical flaws that I've seen in it that don't make sense. You're picking up all these weapons and all these shields and all these bows, and I'm halfway through the game, or at least halfway through the Divine Beasts, and I have not gotten anything that has let me carry more equipment. So it does seem like it is just arbitrarily limited to a certain number of bows, a certain number of shields, and a certain number of swords. It doesn't even feel like the number is the same between those 3 items. And it just doesn't make sense that hasn't been expanded, since that's been a major gameplay mechanic of finding items and then replacing items. Durability is definitely a factor, and I'm breaking a lot of things, but I'm not breaking that many things. So either I'm a slightly better player than what they were thinking as far as people playing Breath of the Wild, and other players are breaking weapons a lot more, or it's just not balanced. Although it doesn't really make sense to have durability in this at all. Like, the whole game feels like they just took a bunch of concepts of what an MMORPG would look like and threw it together. And I almost wouldn't be surprised if it really was a case that at some point this was going to try to be an MMORPG that was going to be in a Zelda universe or not be in Zelda at all. Even like the relationship between Zelda and Link seems slightly weird, because they're going deeper in that with the flashbacks, which I haven't made a lot of progress in the flashbacks at all. And I really think that is probably something that I'm going to have to focus on, particularly since the map is now revealed. But having him be a silent protagonist and having that relationship grow makes for a real problem, and it's something that they've just never really even tried to do. And being ambitious about writing those characters in that story would have been a lot better than being ambitious of having an open world game where there's very little to do. It's just a lot of items to collect for not a lot of great reasons to even have all the items. A lot of shop or upgrade requirements for items. It's definitely not pulling me in to want to wander around the world that is going to be, I'd say at least 80% empty of enemies, to find a specific enemy, to kill it, to get its item drops, to then go to a great fairy fountain and potentially upgrade an armor. I am just instead upgrading the amount of health and hearts I have with every opportunity, and still doing shrines, and I feel like I'm close to halfway done with all the shrines, if not further than halfway done with all the shrines. But I don't know, and I don't know if there's going to be a point in the game where they start to tell me whether I've done all the shrines, or tell me when there's a shrine very far away that I haven't found. It does definitely feel like there's not going to be any guidance, and you are just going to have a situation where you are just going to have a situation here where the game lets you just wander around uncertain if you're finished or not, and it's just going to cross its fingers and hope that most players will just get bored and eventually try and take on Ganon, which Calamity Ganon gets defeated. I don't think the world changes too much. I think there will still be random enemies spawning all over the place, and there still will be a bunch of items. And I don't know if maybe you can go back and do the shrines a second time after you do Calamity Ganon to get the rewards the second time to get certain items. I'm fairly certain items in the chest are just being handed out to you almost at a procedural generation way. So I don't know if there really is going to be any specific weapon that is that important. And doing the Divine Beast in the top left, I got a bow that can be broken, and that's all I got. There was no special armor helmet that would prevent lightning damage like in the lower left hand Divine Beast challenge. So yeah, I definitely could still use some lightning protection in a few areas, but I definitely also feel like I cheated most of the towers. I feel like there probably were some towers that would have been more enjoyable had I actually gone through the entire challenge, but instead I just would die 4 or 5 times trying to cheat my way to it. One of the ability that you get from the top left Divine Beast is an ability that lets you jump high in the air and then start gliding. Once you get that ability, the entire game becomes infinitesimally easier because your stamina stops being as big of a deal. And if there was a kind of infinite amount of upgrades, I probably would still try to get the stamina up to a new tier of stamina increase, but just having 2 rings is probably good enough to beat the whole game. So I'll probably just stick with that and instead go with hearts, because hearts are the bigger thing, particularly as there are these mini bosses, not a lot of them, but by the looks of it, but there are mini bosses that are in the map and you need to fight them. And so to fight the mini bosses, you're going to need some protection from major hit damage, and you're going to just generically benefit from having extra hearts even in super hot and super cold areas. Yeah, so yeah, so that's what I've been doing this weekend, basically. What I didn't do this weekend as far as accountability section is I did not for a second put any of the YouTube shorts up. I did monitor them, and it definitely does feel like they're getting less views later in the evening. Live streaming late in the evening also, I'm sure, is not getting me a ton of views, but my sleep schedule has shifted once again, so there's not too much I can really do with that. Let's go ahead and banish this one. Using that ability was stupid. Plus, it also proved to me that neither one of these 2 cards can actually neither one of these cards can apparently be monster summoned. Monster Reborn. Which, okay, fine. Alright, let's see. Let's go through the video game news. Video Games Chronicles says GameStop stores will be selling PS5 consoles on Saturday. Again, that seems to be fairly consistent now, and it's stopping to become actual news. I think definitely after Christmas, any talk of game consoles being in stock stops being that important. Let's see, Ubisoft has reportedly delayed the next Assassin's Creed game to spring of 2023. Hogwarts Legacy Collector's Edition contents appear online. Players can get up to 3 days early access to the game. We've seen a little bit of gameplay trailers and footage of Hogwarts Legacy Collection, but I really do question how much game is actually there. Whether it is just going to be a case of doing a lot of button mashing to attack with your wand, or whether there will be more conversations, interactions, puzzle solving, or if it is just going to be kind of a action RPG type experience. Like a Diablo game basically turned in the Hogwarts universe wouldn't be terrible. Just clicking the mouse and fighting monsters over and over again and getting items and leveling it up. Multiversus adds LeBron James and Rick and Morty, which this is how LeBron James is going to look. Which I guess I have to say he has a decent agent there as far as getting into this Warner Brothers fighting game. Multiversus, but I think Multiversus is already dead in the water, so let's see what Monster Reborn can do that now. Literally can bring that to the field. Meanwhile, he's going to destroy this. If he's not going to move fast about it, then... yeah, I think this probably kills me, so let's just activate this. Finish that card. Which is activating spells. And declare an attack. And end the turn. Let's see. Halo Infinite multiplayer is reportedly causing players to use 1 gigabit of data per game. The issue will be fixed in August according to 343. That is a massive amount of data. Although I don't know how many people are playing Halo Infinite on a console or PC on a data capped limited connection. There's probably a decent percentage of players though that are trying to. Apex Legends next character has been revealed early by Respawn, which I guess is this character. There was a video on Reddit talking about Counter-Strike Go communities and pushing a narrative that someone was kicked a female player was kicked the second she said anything, which, yeah, I suppose it probably happens. I don't know if it happens specifically more to females or males. In Counter-Strike Go in particular is just I think, fairly mature multiplayer game, like most multiplayer games that have a lot of immature players and toxic. I don't like to use the phrase toxic. Just aggressive players. Multiplayer matchmaking still has a long way to go in my opinion, as far as just being able to label yourself as far as, am I here for fun or am I here to win? Am I here to play with other people that I consider professional and are here to win, or am I here to just play with my group, in my small group anyways? I think probably the number of players in a Counter-Strike Go game causes some problems that you need a team of 5. Having never played Counter-Strike Go myself, just the number of players there seems to cause problems, when really I could see teams of 2 or 3 making a lot more sense. And if anything, that is kind of the problem with most multiplayer games, is that You really need either a free-for-all where it's one versus everyone else, like what is it? Battle Royale type games, which I think that is a thing certainly that has been improved with Battle Royale type games. I just saw this card and I've forgotten what it was, so you know what, I'm just gonna leave it there. Or it needs very small teams, and I think maybe that's what gets fixed in something like Splatoon, where I think there really is only 3 people on a team in Splatoon. There might be different modes, but yeah, small teams of 2, small teams of 3. Individual rankings versus team rankings being emphasized, certainly. That could be another thing to focus on. Counter-Strike Go, I think, also just has a kind of bad system in that people can just vote to kick. It's the tyranny of democracy, as it were. When perhaps there is a better system, or just a no-kick system at all. It's from someone on the outside, there does seem to be an obsession with people claiming other people are feeding, claiming other people are bad players. And I have to really wonder if there's a lot of benefit in spending a lot of time playing multiplayer games. If you're not making friends, if you're not really enjoying it so much. And that has always been kind of at the back of my mind as far as esports in general. Is just like those professional players, they're not making friends, they're not enjoying it. If they're really successful, they were making money for a short time there. I don't know if they're going to still make money in a modern economy. But yeah, personally, I've never really found a lot to like around multiplayer. Like, perhaps that's because I'm just way more honest with myself, and I know that I suck at video games in general. I'm slightly better than average at best, but average is average. I'm definitely not going to be a pro at particularly anything, nor am I really interested in being a pro or an expert at anything. I guess expert is a better term there. But I also just don't see a desire to play the same games over and over again, which is all that multiplayer is. Moving on, as far as video game news, Ubisoft's Roller Champions will soon be cancelled. It's claimed, the update here, Ubisoft has denied claims it's planning to cancel Roller Champions. Which, this is just months after it launched. They're quoting Jeff Grubb, who is claiming that, or claiming his sources are claiming that. There's very little difference. There's been kind of a high number of bits of news around Ubisoft pushing back and canceling things. But that doesn't really mean too much to me either. Like, I don't feel like we are at a point where Ubisoft is just going to go bankrupt or fail. Businesses just aren't really allowed to do that. They may get to a point where Ubisoft is so weak as a company that they then become acquisition fodder. That is believable. I could also see the person in charge of Ubisoft just trying to step down and retire. Vince McMahon just, amid scandal, retired, and Triple H is now going to be in charge of everything. Which oddly skips over his wife being in charge, which I don't think she wants to be in charge. Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon, or Stephanie McMahon, the wife of Triple H, being in charge, or Shane McMahon being in charge. Although it's still keeping it very much in the family, since Triple H married Stephanie McMahon. And if anything, it's seems like there probably is a level of sexism there that requires a man to be in charge. Amongst, I imagine, even the management and the wrestlers themselves. I don't know if they really would take Stephanie McMahon super serious. They probably would. I'm baselessly speculating on that. But yeah, back to video games. I imagine this will be. It is possible that Ubisoft could be just shuttering itself down, slowing down, setting itself to sell off the good assets to different companies and leave Ubisoft a shell of its former self. Which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the plan from years ago, because there's just been so much bad press that has been flung, I think somewhat unfairly, at Ubisoft, on top of bad press that has been flung fairly at Ubisoft. We are seeing a real attempt here to make Jeff Grubb the new Jason Schreier, where Jason Schreier, on the other hand, seems to have kind of disappeared as the main investigative journalist, which is either to assume that he might be working on something else, some other project, or that there's something else that has had him fall out of favor amongst his followers or his sources. But I question, really, whether Jeff Grubb actually is a decent source for things, or whether he's more willing to play it a little fast and loose and exaggerate or report on sources that he probably should know better not to report on. There is very little penalty in being wrong, and I feel like Jeff Grubb has been very wrong. As far as Giant Bomb in general, I think I may have finally broken myself of actually being interested in listening to the Bombcast. Like, they really don't have anything to say. It oddly feels like even the guy in charge that was appointed above the other guy that was in charge that left or was fired, almost certainly was fired. Like, even that guy now feels like he is missing from the conversation and from the Bombcast, and so it is really this odd collection of nobodies. Even the new guy in charge kind of feels like he's missing somewhat, so Yeah, it it is odd to say the least, because there is just like nobody in that group of people that feels like the original class, and it does just feel like Bombcast, the new class. Whereas previously, at least when there was these transitions, at most 3 people would leave um, at, at one time, where that still left a couple of people that felt like they were the originals. But yeah, they seem like they are just completely gone now. Like that there is not a single original founding member of Giant Bomb, and that Giant Bomb is now a completely different website trying to do, oddly, a completely different thing. It feels like I don't know if it really even knows what it's trying to do, but it definitely feels like it is trying to do something very, very different. Desperately, I think, trying to get new audiences where there are none. This has also allowed me to, by not listening to the Bombcast, it's also allowed me to kind of slow down on listening to podcasts in general, which is probably a mistake, because that has just led me to playing more cell phone games. So I'm now wasting a lot of time playing cell phone games when I really should be playing Wolfenstein Dueled, which I haven't gotten anywhere back to even playing it, and it is going to be very it's already at the point where it's going to be an odd return to that game, and it's dangerously getting close to just a rage quit type situation, or lack of interest quit more than a rage quit. And this deck takes forever to play. Alright. Toss a card. Then attack, and win. And getting any victories in this festival is definitely worth it. We leveled up. Like, we're really not that far. So if I just get distracted and get the gems up to 11,000, that's fine. Like, you're not losing too much by losing what is effectively maybe 15, 16 legacy packs and a title. Let's see, moving on back to video game news. Tactics Ogre unannounced remaster has been spotted on the PlayStation Store. The game will reportedly launch in November, according to back-end data. That doesn't really mean anything, though, because that could just be test data. There was a list that came out, I would say about a year and a half ago, of games that were supposed to be coming to PC or coming to the PlayStation Store, and half of the games on the list were not real, although some of them turned out to be real. It's just not solid, confirmable information. Apparently, Stray is now the best user-rated Steam game of 2020 so far, which I guess this was the game everybody wanted in 2022. I can't say a post-COVID world, a post-phase 1 or phase 2 of COVID world. Really not. I don't know if we're ever going to get to a point where we aren't talking about some sort of disease. The truth is, we probably should have been getting news about diseases for decades, and the news, the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock news stations in the old days only had like an hour or so worth of time, and they actively were not talking about things like AIDS, and weren't talking about it on a daily basis. Whereas CNN revolutionized the idea of 24-hour news. At a certain point in their early days, they were actually even good at it. And now 24-hour news is just going to desperately have to fill those 24 hours of talking about something. So I think even if we have very small diseases, which I'm not saying monkeypox or COVID is a small disease by any means, but I think at some point, if COVID and monkeypox stop being a big deal, stop being more than just a daily, this is occurring in small numbers, it probably will never go away completely, but if they stop being a big deal, then I imagine we will potentially start to see cases where even fairly small flu-like diseases, colds, will be talked about, and it probably will just be a new world in which people of the next generation are going to be a lot better about being germ conscious, which is actually going to be a good thing, frankly, because current generations aren't particularly 100% great at being conscious of disease and germs, and previous generations didn't even believe germs existed. But it, not just disease-wise, but economy-wise, we may going forward have very different experiences year to year as far as video games, and it may never quite go back to the way it was, but I imagine we will see some boost. The hope is to see some boost. It would really suck if the new normal is just going to be 4 or 5 AAA games come out as far as video games, and they're gonna, of the 4 and 5, there's a chance that that a significant number of them are going to be fairly bad. So of the 4 and 5 AAA games, if 3 of them are bad, that's not going to be very fun. Alright. Let's go and win. Another victory. Either I've gotten better at playing these decks, or I've just gotten lucky in the past couple of games. And it's not really worth your time to check what normal cards you're getting here. Let's see. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says The Last of Us Part 1 remake will come to PC very soon after the PS5, the developer says. The release date for the PC version is yet to be confirmed. I mean, they really are leaving themselves open to let that date slip, and I imagine they don't particularly care if the date slips. After you've already made the announcement, it's not that big of a deal for it to be 6 weeks later, up to even, I would say, 3 months later. If it comes out 5-6 months later, people might be somewhat upset about that, but people the people that would be hyped about buying Last of Us 1 Remake will buy it on whatever console they can get it on first. And then the Steam PC players are fairly used to the idea of having to wait. Helios deck. That'll be interesting to see if that works. I think we can normal summon this one too. Nope. That one doesn't work. Oh. We'll see what happens here. In the turn. Moving on, Halo Infinite Campaign Co-op won't support online matchmaking, according to Video Games Chronicles. Check out that article if you're interested. The Multiverse's closed beta reached more concurrent Steam users than any fighter ever, which I guess maybe highlights a fact that multiplayer fighting games, Smash Brother clones, while they do exist on Steam, are not particularly great. So it isn't super surprising that Multiverses would get some hype there. And I suppose that does point out that there is a possibility that even with a ton of microtransactions and just bad design options, it is possible that it is possible that the Multiverses may succeed a lot more than I would have thought it would have. That adds that back to the hand. Then I'll take one of these, I guess. Then I'll normal summon this, I guess. Well, that didn't work. It's not showing me what card it is summoning there. So that seems a little odd. Like, I really feel like that should be showing me a card image there, and that's glitched because of the festival. Alright, try this one more time. Summon this. Activate that effect. Activate that effect. So some of these cards come back from being banished. These two in particular. Oh, I suppose I should also say I've watched up to what was available on Hulu. A show from a channel called Freeform, which is apparently a teenager Nickelodeon Disney type channel for a slightly later teenager, called Motherland Fort Salem, where it's like witches that are conscripted into the army, and the entire army is built up of witches. Drama show. I actually liked it a lot, but I guess my taste is definitely not in line with most people because people were on Wikipedia. The reception said it was about 50%, and that uh, it was kind of overwhelming to follow all of it. Uh, there's a lot of people, a lot of characters, and arguably they start to add too many characters later on in the series. But that very well may be the reason why I like it, is that it is a more complicated, convoluted story, and most people can't handle that. They want simple stories. And yeah, that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something different. I kind of wish it was based off a book or had more of a backstory or even a spin-off series. I honestly thought Freeform was a LBGT plus channel just from the name, and I was and there's some of that, but that's pretty much the standard. Like, there's one lesbian character, there's like one transgendered character that is or agendered character, I'm not even sure what you would describe her as or him as, that's added in the second season, but it doesn't really go deep into that idea by any means. But so I would love to have seen like a book or spin-off. I definitely would have loved to see it go longer. This third season seems to be its final season, and it's airing, I think, right now. So I've stopped it like a cliffhanger, but I've watched up to the most recent one. It has definitely a lot of polish on it visually. If anything, if it wasn't on Hulu and if it was on something like Disney Plus, it probably would have succeeded a lot better. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of shows on channels you've never even heard of that are like that, and perhaps Disney bringing everything to Disney Plus can particularly help that, or maybe Netflix getting desperate and bringing more variety onto their offerings, or more shows to their offerings. Yeah. It's a delicate balance, but I definitely feel like Netflix should turn the dial back a little bit on quality for quantity. They should just tip the scales a little bit more for quantity, a little bit more for random things. Not everything needs to be a high art, highly polished things. That they really could go like the Nickelodeon route and just make some like Nickelodeon live action kid shows instead of trying to have a bunch of animations and Resident Evil animes and high budget Witcher shows. Like, I liked a lot of those, certainly, but I don't know if they sell as well as they should. Okay. Let's go ahead and destroy that one. And then I guess destroy that one. So he's banishing all these cards to gain health. So that's why he played Macrocosmos, not to summon special summon Helios. Had nothing to do with that. But it is questionable as to what your strategy really is going to boil down into. I can't attack because of this card. Interesting. And that's the 6th turn that is spun around. 7th turn. I don't know if that's really doing anything, though. Doesn't really matter how many things get sent to the graveyard, though. Because they're just all going to return back to my hand. 5, 4. This is interesting how the chain just kind of spins around. Let's go ahead and normal summon this. Alright, so we're going to take that. And then that. And then let's see if we can activate this effect. And send that back to the deck. And then send that back to the deck. Alright, summon that. Summon that. Let's see. I guess we summon that. He is doomed now, I believe, because now we can go into battle mode and we can start attacking. Will we win in this turn? No, but it is difficult to believe he's going to survive another turn. Let's see, moving on with video game news, Xbox Series X and S consoles will soon boot up faster. Insider test builds of the OS have made the boot up animation shorter, which one would have to assume the animation is hiding how long it actually takes to boot, so it booting up from a cold boot faster implies that there has been some level of improvement into Windows boot up, or at least the special version of Windows that is running on the stripped down version of Windows that is running on Xboxes. There's only so much you can do really to the to improve the boot up process for a computer and a component. You can not test the RAM, and you could have hardware that perhaps initializes or does an initial test in parallel, but only so much can really happen there. It would be interesting if RAM and everything else tested itself in parallel as soon as it gets powered on, and then just returned a an acceptable boot state to the BIOS, but I imagine that wouldn't be very trustworthy. We have I'm going to say Yaharin Ramirez. Apologies if I mispronounced the first name on the chat, saying hi. And then he says, "Oh, cool, I am not new to this channel." Hi, I will say back. It's been a while since we've had anybody on the chat. It says, "You want to be my friend in Master Duel?" Yeah, I'll put up the friend code. Let's see, you can't do it in game. That's the problem. Like, it would be fairly nice if you could click on somebody. "I'm new in Master Duel," he says, "but I know how to play, and I play Duel Links too." That's probably fairly confusing to go from Duel Links to Master Duel. There's a big enough difference. Master Duel being very much the main collectible card game, trading card game version. Alright. Friend code. How do we find the friend code? Is it over here? Yeah. Here's the ID. If you want to friend me, 837-547-878. And you would go over here to friend and click that, and then type that in there. And I'm more than willing to accept friend things, although I'm often pressed for time, and so often don't really have a good reason to, or a good I really don't have a good opportunity to play a lot of people, or good reasons to play a lot of people. See, we still need to win 2 more duels in this festival and special summon 12 more monsters. So there's a lot of things there that need to happen. So friending people and playing friends, until they start giving us daily quests that says to play a friend, or you can play a friend, it is just a very low priority at the moment to engage with that. Yeah. Ramirez says he has seen videos of this game, and his name is Katsumi, and then okay, wait, let's continue with the video game news. Juventus is coming back to FIFA for the first time since 2019. The team was an eFootball exclusive, meaning it missed FIFA 20, 21, and 22. That being said, I don't recognize Juventus as a football club, but I don't also follow soccer, so that's not super surprising. EA is reportedly making a single-player open-world Black Panther game. It's thought to be in the works at a studio led by former Monolith Productions boss Kevin Stevens. Not a terrible idea, certainly, but it does really create a weird situation where I believe the main actor of Black Panther was the guy that died. So there can't really be a great emphasis on Black Panther. The Marvel Avengers characters have pretty much moved on to a second generation, and I don't think Black Panther, uh, Black Panther's sister, who's going to replace him, I think is what's going to happen. I don't think she'll be a major focus. Um, so the hype pretty much is died down there. Now, arguably, there is a good idea, certainly, around the thought of taking some of the secondary characters, which arguably Black Panther is not a secondary character. He is probably a top tier Avenger character that should be focused more on, not just because he's African, but because he actually did have a fairly strong following in the comics. But I could see a lot of the Marvel characters starting to make more of their appearance in video games and more of their focus in video games, and then trying to keep the Avenger movies down to a tight 5 Avengers. And arguably it's not going to be and shouldn't be like Phase 1 where there's just like 4 or 5 Iron Man 4 or 5 Iron Man type movies on top of 3 or 4 Avengers movies. And yeah, the second phase of Avengers movies are not here. What is this? Wandering Travelers. Is this a pre-built deck? Nope, this is the selection pack. Yeah, I've already engaged with this. Okay, well, I'm not getting the friend notification. Again, we'll say the number one more time. 837-547-878. Whenever it comes in, I'll accept it after it comes in. Meanwhile, I've got festivals to do and lots of other things to do, so back to regular gameplay. Can't stop the flow of an entire stream for friend requests. Let's see, the Lord of the Rings Golem has been delayed by a few months for polishing. It was previously scheduled to be released in September 2022, which inherently that means it has been pushed past the Christmas holiday, pushed past November Black Friday, which means it probably won't come out until mid-2023 at the earliest, which is probably a good thing because they haven't actually shown us this game as far as I have seen. There's just this gameplay reveal, which I question whether the artwork was final. I question whether this was actually happening in engine. There's a lot of weirdness certainly around playing as Golem in the first place. It looks like a stealth game. But I'm not sure how much of a stealth game you really want to play. There's this game called Styx that was like a 100% stealth game. And that got kind of exhausting. Like, inherently most stealth games want to give you the option to recover when you break stealth or when you get caught, and I'm not sure that this is Lord of the Rings Golem is that kind of game where you can actually fight your way out of it, because Golem just looks so exaggerated, might be the word, so shriveled up and weak. But yeah, more polishing for any game is always a good thing in my book. So better they delay it than force it out and release a low quality game for a high title name. Apex Legends Season 14 release date, trailer, and new hero were officially revealed, which, okay. There definitely still seems to be a kind of consistency in, it seems like there's a focus on having characters heavily covered up. I don't know if they're going to just always be in snowy areas. It looks like that's the case. But yeah, you're seeing very little skin on characters, which then dangerously just turns them into walking costumes. And I don't know if there's that good of a reason to be interested in walking costumes. See if we skip around in this trailer. Definitely seems like they are in the snow. And if anything, it feels like they are just stealing the ideas of Horizon Forbidden West, with that being mostly in a snowy area also. But yeah, you look at this character, very much padded, covered up. So not showing a lot of skin, not showing really any kind of highly hourglass figure type characters. Yep. Well, yeah. Not a lot in that trailer. Let's see. The World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King Classic release date has been announced. I feel like Wrath of the Lich King is talked about so much that at some point you would have gotten ambitious and tried to come out with something called Rage of the Lich Queen or Wrath of the Lich Queen, just to say here's what is going to be our official support of or official sequel to Wrath of the Lich King. But then also they just trying to they may very well just be trying to move they may very well just be trying to move forward with the story and not have people continuously talk about Wrath of the Lich King. Although I don't know what World of Warcraft really can do to make anybody happy. Its audience is set in stone at this point. And people just want what already was released, and they really aren't that interested in the new stuff. And then we have Ubisoft denied claims it's planning to cancel Roller Champions, which arguably Roller Champions, if it gets enough push, doesn't look like a terrible game, but arguably the problem is it is trying to do the Rocket League thing when even Rocket League at this point is not as interesting as it may have once been. Like, I tried to play Rocket League several months ago, and I tried to play it on the Switch, and it's just like not really that easy to control or that interesting to play. I think in particular since it's gone free to play. Again, Rocket League may have been one of those video games that was just hyped up to the extreme by mainstream video game critics and actually wasn't ever that interesting to actual players, or had a small fan base, and then that fan base moved on to Fortnite. And then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta code drop is coming next week, according to Video Games Chronicles. Let's see, and then the Gematsu articles. Now, Last of Us Part 1 features and gameplay trailer is available if you want to check that out. The Super NES and NES add online adds Fighter's History, Kirby's Avalanche, and Divia Story 6 Imperial of Nersartia. We had already kind of talked about these games being announced. Next on has a 30th anniversary called Project One being announced, due out in 2023 in Japan. Looks like it is a visual novel to me. One of the videos from one of the people I follow on YouTube came out today that said the death of visual novels or something like that in the title, and I'm going to watch that and see that argument. I kind of wonder if that's not accurate, though, that we are getting to the point where visual novels are starting to get to be outdated, and we're just seeing fewer and fewer of them be announced and fewer of them being released, at least in the West, at least on Steam. Grim Grimoire Once More has its 8th trailer, which this is the problem with Japanese advertising, is to put out 8 different trailers. And then Alice Gear's Aegis CS has a customization trailer, and this very possibly is the 8th trailer for this game. And yet every time they show this game, it looks like what it looks like, and it doesn't look good to me. So familiarity is not improving my my desire to ever play that game. Soul Hackers 2 Worldview Complete Explanation trailer is available, which arguably Soul Hackers 2 probably does need a trailer to explain the general premise of Soul Hackers 2 for people who very possibly didn't play Soul Hackers 1. Nintendo Switch Sports update to add football leg strap support, new volleyball moves, and more on July 26th, which really, I think, highlights that the game is the game was not finished as far as Nintendo Switch Sports, and there was really no reason to release it in an unfinished version. If anything, it's a clear experiment by Nintendo to see if they can put out half-finished games like other developers and publishers do, and to see if they can get away with it, because there's just really no reason to announce the game and release the game at that time if it was unfinished. Let's see. The game Thymesia has been delayed to August 18th, which is a 9-day delay. That being said, I don't really know what Thymesia is. It's apparently an action RPG, which is coming out soon, so we'll check that out in a second, or we'll check it out when it comes out. Dinosaur Survival MMO Path of the Titans beta is coming to basically every console except for the Switch on July 27th. Which, the MMO aspect of playing as a dinosaur is an interesting thought. I'd assume you're playing as the dinosaur and not just surviving in a world of dinosaurs, which maybe you are. But I do have to kind of question what the general gameplay mechanics and controls would have been. I didn't mean to save that duel, but whatever. It's not like I even know where to go. Mr. Ramirez here, it says you can't accept my friend request. Let's double check. Correct. I cannot accept your friend request because... Oh, here it is. Let's see. How do we do this? I guess that was my fault. I didn't... This is as a follower. Profile, maybe. follow, block, reply. Oh, how does this work? Follow. So we have this other person too on the friends menu. See, this is the problem with this, is that the friend system right now just does not work. Like, apologies here, but I think the only way you can do it is you'd have to come over here, you'd have to create a room, and then let's see. Nope, I don't think there's really a way to do it. Yeah. Sorry. You can create a room. I know you can. I've done that before, but as far as accepting friend requests, it is here. Like, we could go to this profile, we could click to follow, we can come back here, and then under the follow he would be here. And then I guess that's what you have to do, is you have to friend duel at that point. Okay, so let's go ahead on this profile. I'm going to follow this. Yeah. Master Duel is a relatively new game, so let's see. If I go friend duel here, it is to create a room, basically, is how this works. Alright. Room members. This is just me. And see, then I would have to click invite friends. Like that. It's just a lot of work. A lot of work with no reward for playing this at all. I'll select my Zodiac Tri-Brigade, and more than likely Ramirez is just in the middle of a game himself, and thus it'll take him 5 to 10 minutes to potentially even 20 or 30 minutes to finish a game before you could even accept the invite and play. And right now it really goes to show this: the system is not fast, it's not quick, it's not easy to play. Since Master Duel is so focused on ranked dueling, you can't surrender or leave a ranked game without hurting yourself fairly significantly. So you just have to play it out or hope that somebody beats you. And even then, you don't really want to hope that somebody beats you. You want to make it to the next the next rank. You want to win. And so you cannot do anything else while you're waiting for this. You can't. You could edit your deck, and that's it. You can look at your cards, but you can't play a different game. So we can look at the video game news. We'll give this a couple of minutes, and we'll see if Mr. Ramirez here. I assume it's Mr. Yeah. Nowadays, it's not even worth saying Mr. and Mrs. anymore. It's better just to say Ramirez. But yeah, we'll cover the news. We had already talked about Multiversus, adding LeBron James and Rick and Morty. Exoprimal Dinosaur introduction trailers available, and it does seem like we are getting to a point where we'll look at this blurred out trailer. It's slightly blurred for YouTube reasons. It does kind of feel like we are getting to the point where dinosaurs might be the next big thing. or at least people think dinosaurs might be the next big thing. I don't know why people think dinosaurs might be the next big thing, but it does definitely feel like we're still having a case where one game developer has an idea that involves some theme, and then all of a sudden you get a whole bunch of games with bows and arrows, or you get a whole bunch of games with pirates, or you get a whole bunch of games with dinosaurs. For creatives, game developers, for people who are supposed to be creatives, they tend not to be as creative as they probably should be. They seem to be too easily influenced. Also looks like these dinosaurs are going to have different effects and traits on them, so they aren't just going to be regular dinosaurs, which that does, I think, improve what you're really fighting at that point, because at a certain point they stop being dinosaurs as much as they are just monsters and kaijus. But yeah, it may very well be a case where the actual person in charge of making ideas and stories and concepts is not that creative, and the actual programmers of games are a lot more creative, and their input is just being ignored. But I suspect that's not really the case. Moving on, Gamatsu says Dragon Quest X Online all-in-one package version 1 through 6 launches October 20th in Japan, which feels like this is a combination of something. It includes all content from versions 1 to 6 of Dragon Quest massively multiplayer online RPG, which, if anything, I guess does imply that Dragon Quest X has been, or Dragon Quest X Online has been around for a lot longer than I thought it was. Whereas Dragon Quest X Offline has a second trailer, which at a certain point maybe points out that Dragon Quest X as a game works just as well offline as it does online, which is not good news. And then TapTap presents its 2022 mobile game showcase airing today, or it airs today. Nope, that was a couple days ago actually. It apparently showcased a bunch of games, Genshin Impact being one of them. The rest of these games not so recognizable. Torchlight Infinite is somewhat recognizable, but let's see if I was to hit play on this. It's just a teaser for the present. TapTap is a competitive Android store for Android apps. I don't know if they have an iOS app. I think probably not, because you probably have to jailbreak your phone to install TapTap on iOS. It doesn't really have anything special and notable about it, other than, yes, I guess I've given it enough time here, so I need to jump back to actually playing, so apologies. Yeah, unfortunately I probably responded incorrectly there, and I should say at this moment I'm just not going to do game friend request games on Master Duel until it gets improved. Apologies for that. Like, that should have been my response. That will be my response going forward, because it just is too much of a hassle, and there's just no reward for playing friends on Master Duel at the moment. But I will definitely accept. I figured out how to follow people back, and I will do that going forward. If you want to build a friends list, but actually trying to play people is too much of a hassle. I've done it a couple times before, and it's been a hassle before. Yeah, anyways, the only thing special about TapTap is that they did have a less censored version of the mobile phone game I love to play, Destiny Child, which probably is getting old enough now that I'm starting to suspect it will start to wrap up. But it's a less censored version on the TapTap version, in favor of then having different kinds of ads and less ads for free giveaways for watching ads. Now, only recently have you really been encouraged and rewarded for looking at ads, or at least I think that's the case. But it definitely makes a lot more sense to play the Android version of Destiny Child and then install the uncensored patch on top of the Google Play version of the game, Google Play Store version, because then you get the best of both worlds. You get the opportunity to watch ads and get free rewards for watching ads, which it sucks watching ads, certainly, but then you also get the benefit of other things. I should have activated this effect first to then activate this effect to activate this effect. Since we already did this one, we'll send that one to the graveyard. Then go ahead and activate this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And attack. And at this point, the player should just surrender because they've lost. Two-turn kill, three-turn kill. Played well. Let's see. Gamatsu says a game called Wuthering Waves has been confirmed for iOS and Android. They have a Sayonara gameplay. I'm not sure if that's actually how you pronounce Sayonara, though. New battle against mysterious crisis begins. This looks like a Eastern mobile game of some sort. Action RPG. Genshin Impact clone, for lack of a better term. Yeah, once I've actually finished playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, I really should probably spend a few minutes playing Genshin Impact to just see what they actually did actively ape or take from Breath of the Wild, because honestly, the things I've seen in Breath of the Wild aren't that unique. Yeah, so it's not like there's some concept that they revolutionized or introduced. These are probably all TapTap announcements, since there's so many smartphone game announcements here. The free-to-play turn-based action RPG Etheria Restart has been announced for PC, iOS, and Android. TapTap might take it to a direction where they are going to start to be a publisher for Steam also. And at a certain level, the mobile games that come out are not too different from what you would expect to see on Steam anyways. that gap between PC gaming, mobile gaming is becoming smaller and smaller for indie games and single A games, even double A games. It's only when you start to get to like triple A games with a high level of polish and ray tracing, or just really demanding open worlds, do things really start to become too much for a mobile phone. Yeah, you're seeing here in this game that in this trailer they're showing off a bunch of different characters, and they seem to be fighting in fairly small areas that look like open rooms, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are kind of just battle dungeons. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is very little like open world aspects to that game, and it is just moving from battle to battle. So ideally here we're looking for 3 or 4 victories in a row so we can get up to platinum. One more victory is all I need. And if I can get up to platinum, I almost would prefer to just stay at platinum 5, and call it a month. Let's see, Captain Tsubasa Ace has been announced for iOS and Android, which is, I guess, not the Inazumi 11 game, I think was the other one. So we're going to have 2 anime-based soccer games. Although this trailer here is not really showing any gameplay, so if you told me this was actually a card game, I would kind of believe you. Or if you told me it was a visual novel, I'd kind of believe you. It is somewhat questionable whether there is that much value in having a narrative element around a soccer game, particularly on a mobile phone, but it probably would help. I don't think Inazuma 11 or Captain Tsubasa are particularly bad stories, so... There we go. We're on a win streak. So we're now at platinum. Ideally, we need 4 more wins to get to platinum 4 instead of 5. And when we are done, it will drop us back down to gold 5 at the end of the month, unless we could get all the way to diamond, which is weird, it's platinum then diamond, but whatever. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to get up to that in that time frame. But I also don't think I've done enough gameplay to actually get all the daily quests done. So I want to play a couple of times. What I think I want to do is just play while I'm on a win streak now, until it puts up here that if you lose, you're going to fall down, and then just stop playing there. And then that might be 200-300 gems lost for just keeping the rank, to try and potentially push for diamond next push for diamond next month, which I don't know if I really would make it to diamond next month anyways. Alright, let's start looking at games on Steam and go through these very quickly. As far as what we have here, another furry visual novels. We're still seeing a decent amount of those. Who is the hero of the game? Looks like it is a not quite visually polished enough adventure game for my liking. Let's see. This is a good one to use. Get it so he can't draw 2 cards. He discards 10 cards and then he can't draw anything from it. This game Through the Night is a spider swinging platformer. Here we have some kind of card game with anime waifu girls. Okay. The question I guess would come down to is how much of a single player experience can you have, and is it really worth $19.99? And how much support really would you have here, because fairly quickly, if you're not getting updates, that may be a problem. It also may be a case that thematically this is too much around Egyptian mythology and only Egyptian mythology, whereas if even something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Tried to only stick with an Egyptian mythology and there weren't all the other insects and robots and other kinds of themes that they played with in Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be very boring. Yeah, it does feel like there might be a limitation here where it is just Egyptian religion, Egyptian god characters as anime girls. It does kind of feel like an oddly designed board in the way that you play, so it might play a little bit differently. Of course, I really don't have time in my life to play 2 card games. Here we have a game called The Manga Works, which just looks like a simulation, job simulator, which why would anybody ever want to play a job simulator? Pocket Clothier, same idea. Why would you want to play a game that's just simulating poorly the experience of doing a job on top of not actually paying you for doing that job? Right. This game Lost Gray doesn't look like anything. Tiki Hop doesn't look like anything. Box Runner is garbage. Free Fly is garbage. Brachio is just an Arkanoid clone. Chaos Galaxy 2 looks like it's a space strategy game, which I'll give it a follow. The problem, particularly right now, is going to be that I have about 10 games that should be in the YouTube Shorts spotlight videos, and I need to quit calling them spotlights because that means something different. I've already used that phrase for something. But I have about 10 games already lined up, so I need to pick 14 of them and line them up for the next 2 weeks, and not this Sunday but the Sunday after this Sunday will be the drop-off point in which I'm going to start scheduling videos for the YouTube Shorts. I'm not going to go any further than that. And then if there are more games that I want to make YouTube Shorts out of, I'm going to then start doubling up and potentially have 2 or 3 shorts every day, regardless of the fact that most people probably don't want to see the shorts or care about the shorts. That's what the YouTube algorithm has been programmed, I think, to desire and want, and it did seem like it was actually helping when I had them coming out at the earlier time of day. Let's see, we have a game here called Banana Drama, which doesn't look like anything. Here we have a game called Breath of Ghosts, which might be something, but probably isn't. Here we have something called Electro Soul, which looks like it's probably a single screen puzzle game. I'll give it a chance. I'm being a lot more lenient on what goes on the follow list now, and I'm just kind of thinking more in the lines of follow list cleanup being the points when games need more scrutiny. Here we have a game called Video Game Tutorial, which looks like it's pretty much just a prototype or asset flip game. Game called Acacia. It looks like it's a tank game. I'm not particularly interested in that. I don't think most people are interested in that either. SDC2X also looks like a military game of no interest. Warriors and Mages. Doesn't look like anything. Chameleon DYH. A comic manga inspired interactive game, which, if this is supposed to be a manga artist, it's not good drawing. If you're going to tell me this is a Western or comic maker, it looks alright. Being extremely generous by putting that on the follow list because it really does not feel like there's a game there. Oh, I should have activated this. Actually, I don't think that would have done anything anyways, because he summoned it out of my graveyard. Potentially going to lose in 2 turns. It would take quite a bit of luck to counter this strategy. And I have none. Like, best case scenario, you would like remove that, and then you'd activate that. And this would just count as card activations towards the daily quest. Let's see, we have a game here called Psychoscopy, which looks like another horror game. I think I can say no to that immediately. Jumping here doesn't look that good. Depot Death Epileptic Pixels Origins doesn't look that good. Demons Happens looks like garbage. Last Metal Shooter looks like garbage. Well, the good news is, I guess there really isn't going to be that much good games to talk about today, so that'll speed up this whole process. Police on Duty, I'll give it a follow, but it's probably nothing. Noticeably, I did not change the adult content limitations. I simply just have not seen any adult content that came out today or over the weekend. Like, not a Western adult game, there's one. Like, only Fap Simulator 2 has very pornographic 3D models of characters. Doesn't look terrible, but it is just a clicker game too, which arguably maybe that is the best idea is to have just a clicker simplistic game. Says it's coming soon. Now there is still that weirdness as to, I'm not 100% sure that a lot of these adult games actually do ever get released on Steam, or if they just manage to get listed on Steam and then Steam doesn't approve the final version of the game because they're actually doing some level of censorship slash curation slash quality control, whatever you want to call it. But even if that is the case, that's still a terrible way to run your business, to allow people to put screenshots and thumbnails of games that are never going to come out. And yeah, we have not made any progress as far as any of the daily quests, as far as finishing any of the quests. So I definitely need to play another ranked game. Let's see, we have a game here called Project Dagger, which looks like nothing. We have a game called Rogueline, which looks like nothing. We have a game called Escape Room Simulator, which looks like an asset flip game. Land of the Mage Lords looks terrible. Hancock Beginnings Match 3 game looks mediocre. This looks like trash. Yeah, it gets real easy when you can just take a visual glimpse of the game and then immediately dismiss it, which is the vast majority of games that come out on Steam. This game, Dark Lady, seems to be a collection of pictures, but not even really from the same artist, because you have this more in shadow and shade, and then you have a very colorful anime girl picture here. That feels like there's probably only 2 or 3 of these. This would be one of those games that I would lean towards thinking very possibly they've stolen the art and didn't even bother to license it. It says it's English only. These still seeing a decent amount of these puzzle games. Alright, let's do this. Let's see if I can get the sequence right on the first try. Alright. I think the idea is you do this one first. Yeah, this would let me special summon something from the field. So I shouldn't do that one. I should... Let's see. Should have done 3, then 4, then 1, then 2. Although, I don't know if any of it actually matters unless you have actually 3 cards. You need like 3 Zodiacs in your in your graveyard, and you just won't have that on the first turn. And we'll just go ahead and discard this one. Put that one on the field. Activate that. Put that in the graveyard. Activate that. Take this. which that's fine. Then we go for the battle now, or is there something else we could do? I think we just attack now. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam here called Night Hunt, which looks like it's a horror player versus player, asynchronous player. No, it's a 3 versus 3 stealth game, online PvP. Which I guess this is one of those games where I should make a YouTube short around it, but personally, since I'm not going to play online player versus player games, it's not one I'm going to play. I really do need to flip the adult content censor back on, though. I don't feel like there's anything more informative to be learned by seeing it. It clearly is a case that 3D models from Western style 3D models, hyper realistic models of women, those types of games, and men are allowed on Steam. But the more Eastern anime style of games are coming out on Steam at a far smaller number, when really that feels like that should be the equal numbers to me, but maybe it shouldn't. Maybe I'm just wrong. It's very possible. So I'm like looking at an adult game now called Hot Sauna, and the very first screenshot is showing a fully naked woman committing a sex act on a fully naked other woman. And then they show on another screenshot a male, fully naked male, and so there's a whole three-way sex scene that's being depicted on this quote-unquote game. And yep, they say it's a visual novel, so it's just going to be a collection of computer-generated images, CGs as they're called. There's not really a lot you can say about them. The thing I haven't seen in the past 3 or 4 weeks since I've been looking at the adult-only games is I haven't seen any quality adult games. Not anything even slightly attempting to have quality. And I can't help but feel like tinfoil hat thinking might be accurate in that maybe somebody inside of Valve who approves these games or lets these games on Steam wants the low quality games but doesn't want anything with any like good narrative, anything that really feels like it's crossing the line towards being actual art versus just being pornography. Because they prefer, I think, for the line to be fairly unblurred, and they'd prefer to push the narrative that there are no quality adult games. And thus, I guess, the idea is that adult games don't deserve the same level of protections as any other form of art. But that is unprovable. It is just a potential scenario in my mind that they are letting the bad Western adult games. In all fairness, Western adult games are all bad. I have yet to find a single collection, even a few games that are actually good from Western adult game makers. That they are just selling on the nudity. They're not even selling on like high class costumes or titillation or anything like that. It's just like, here is a fully naked body, which even porn doesn't do that. That doesn't work. to just start out buck naked and then continue buck naked throughout the whole story. We have a walking simulator here called Forest Mystery. We have a game here called COVID Killer, which looks like it's a first-person shooter inside the body of somebody. I don't think I'd want to play it just because it has COVID in the name. I feel like that get de-emphasized by the YouTube algorithm. Let's see. Kintor and also Bobby. I feel like this might have been a game that I'd already looked at. This game feels like it's all over the place, but I'll give it a follow just to see if it turns out to be anything. Generally, if I'm saying I'm gonna give it a follow, but I think it's probably nothing, that's probably not a game I should bother to make a YouTube short around it. Bad impressions here. Looks like we may have a disconnect win. Let me just go ahead and activate my ability while that's happening. That way I don't lose. Yeah, if I can get a decent amount of connection failures, that might bump me up in ranked. Even if I can just go up from 5 to 4, that gives me a level of protection for the rest of the week to not fall out of platinum. Here we have a tower defense game called Alien Time. Then we have another adult game, and again the trailers are just immediately showing pornography in the trailers. Again, they're calling these visual novels, but honestly, I don't like. I'm seeing video in the trailer, so it seems like they're calling them visual novels when really they're just videos. Suffice it to say, though, I've got to turn the adult stuff off because I'm not learning anything new. I've learned that yes, there's a lot of adults-only Western games that are getting released on a daily basis over the weekend, and if anything, it just puts me back to my theory that Eastern anime, moe, visual novel, adult games, whatever they are getting the scales tipped against them, because they still do feel like they're coming out very infrequently, and they do still seem like they're only coming out on the weekends every other week. There's an occasional game that seems to slip through and come out maybe on a Monday or Friday, maybe even a Tuesday, Wednesday, but yeah. The thing that would have changed my mind, or at least been informative to my theory, would have been if I had looked at all the adult games, the adults only games that weren't being shown to me previously, the old way I used to look at all the games coming out on Steam. If I had seen a bunch of more Eastern style, anime style games coming up, then that would have 100% blown my theory out of the water. But so far my theory is mostly still solid, that 90%, 95%, 99% of all Eastern adult games, or even lewd Eastern adult games, are getting bundled and released every other weekend. And it's more than just a coincidence, it feels like. And at a certain point it does come off somewhat like a conspiracy theory, but I guess technically it is a conspiracy theory. I do think that there's at least one employee in Valve that is conspiring against Eastern visual novels, Eastern adult games. I don't think it is a consistent rule inside of Valve, because I don't think Valve has consistent rules. But I do think it is at least one employee that is actively doing that. The final game we have here is called Chess Dungeons, which looks like they are chess-style puzzles. Which there might be something to that, certainly. Let's see. And then we had some more Komatsu articles to go through, about 5 or 10 more. This should probably be the last game we play today, even if we haven't gotten all the daily quests done. Anno Mutationum is coming to iOS and Android. It's also coming to PC via Steam. All of these Tap Tap Presents games are... I just got wrecked there. I used to play a strategy somewhat similar with Cyberstein, but I don't think it really wins consistently. It does kind of feel like the Anno, all the games that are being announced are fairly similar. We're going to have to see if I'm having network problems in general, or if it's just the... I think I might be having network problems in general. I'm waiting for YouTube to stop working. Alright, well, then that's going to severely limit what I can do if I'm having network problems, because I can't do anything with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and I can only really close tabs without playing videos or anything like that. So I can cover the news and we can kind of wrap up, but it's going to be an awkward experience, and then I guess that's just going to have to be it for today. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator is coming to iOS and Android. That was a game that people were kind of hyped up about for like a month, almost a year ago. A game called Adventure Academia: The Fractured Continent has its second trailer, and I don't believe this has anything to do with the Tap Tap presentation. Which I can't, again, hit play on anything, so... Oddly, the YouTube streaming seems not to be affected so far. Labyrinth of Zangetsu has a debut trailer, which looks like it's just a dungeon crawler. Let's see, Komatsu says Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher launches October 20th in Japan and Asia. A game called Heaven Burns Red is coming to PC soon. It will support cross progression with the smartphone version. This one actually does look slightly interesting, so I'll probably want to keep an eye out for that. And then a Funko and 1010 Games announced a AAA action platformer for consoles and PC, which the idea of a Funko Pop game is slightly terrifying, that you could create awful Funko Pops, and I don't know why anybody likes them. They look hideous as far as statues. They feel like a modern Cabbage Patch or Garbage Pail Kids type thing that is just such a unique art style that nobody really should have liked them, and yet they got shoved in people's faces enough that people did like them. Let's see, this week's Japanese game releases Our anonymous code is your Striker Gunvolt 3, Digimon Survive, Dungeon Munchies, Grim Grimoire Once More, Haji Love Making Lovers, Haji Love Sugar Style Set, Himimiya-san wa Kamai Tai. I don't know what that is. Komajo Remelia Scarlet Symphony, Legend of Heroes Kuro no Kisekai, Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 1 through 4, and Trails of Reverie complete box set. Psycho Shooting Stars Bravo, Real Life Dear for You for Switch, Sen no Hatsu Tsuki Some no Kyoki, Sifu Vengeance Edition, Surviving the Aftermath, Snow Runner, Stories of Seasons Pioneers of Oliver Town, Tengoku Struggle Stray Side, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That is a lot of games to come out physically on Steam. Let's see if this decides to work now. Nope. And I suppose this would be my best guess as far as if I'm going to believe that there are Eastern games, Eastern particularly adult games, they probably would be in this digital only section that I've up until this point mostly ignored. So this Hot Sento Girls in Love for the Switch probably is at least a lewd game, where Me and My Dangerous Life Living Together for the Switch might also be a lewd game or an adult game. Some of these other ones though, like Nico-sama here, I'm not sure about and wouldn't really be sure about. Super Notogram. Yep, I'm not seeing a lot of lists of digital games here either that would scream adult visual novels or adult Eastern games. Let's see, Tactics Ogre has Tactics Ogre Reborn, description, screenshots, and release date appear on the PlayStation Store price tracker, which we had already talked about that. And then, let's see. We have some GameDeveloper.com articles, and then we have some fall list cleanup, and then we'll just call it a stream. Hopefully this is just a random fluke on my network, but it might also be because I made a change to my network, and if that is the problem, then I'll have to make the change back, which may not be that big of a deal. I'm still struggling to figure out why the automatic unlock on this new Deadbolt I installed worked for me once and never again. Although I haven't tried it with my phone or my new phone, I've only found it to not work with the other phone. It may very well be the case that it only works with a default phone and it doesn't work with multiple devices, which is stupid. The whole thing, I'd hate to have to take it apart and change it out, but the whole thing feels like a failure. Yep. It may have just been trying to fly too close to the sun as far as trying to get home automation all on the same software and all working together. And for the Deadbolt I installed, it's not on the same software and it's not working together at all. Let's see. We were covering the news. GameDeveloper.com says the Assassin's Creed delay will dent Ubisoft's 2022 financials. Diablo Immortal, regardless of it not really being anything anybody likes, has topped 20 million installs somehow. So maybe that is just a case that if all you care about is numbers, maybe you can get a bunch of Chinese people, Asian people, just not English speaking people to still play games full of microtransactions and not really complain about it. Let's see. Riot Games has a $100 million gender discrimination settlement being granted a preliminary approval. Decision means payouts could begin later this year. So, was this a judge approving what was in arbitration agreed upon? But yeah. Suffice it to say, there's been a lot of bad behavior going on for a very long time, and it's not just in the game industry, it's in all industries. Like, inherently, capitalism is the criminal here more than anything. Capitalism allows for people to gain power over other people, either because they have money or at least they have the perception of money. And so money equaling power already creates dangerous connections, whereas previously, if power was only held by lineage and kings, at least that would be a smaller number of people. I'm not arguing we should go back to kingdoms and things like that by any means, but any random person not in the not being with no oversight being allowed to gain power is a problem. And there's been inherent sexism over hundreds of years that have allowed men, and usually men of bad moral character, to succeed and grow their businesses and entrench themselves in charge of their businesses. So it's not surprising that a lot of this happens, certainly. Sexism really is a big thing. We need a fourth wave of feminism, probably, to spring up. We need women and allies of women to step up. There's also sexism in the opposite direction, too. So a fourth wave of human rights arguably maybe isn't going to be called fourth wave feminism as much as it will just be called equal rights amongst everybody. You see that with the LGBTQ plus situation, where it's just the movement there is becoming ever inclusive to the point where it's including almost everybody. So the next step really would be to just say, let's just include everybody and have a movement that is focusing on equal rights for all, which is a big goal, certainly, instead of having a whole bunch of different movements that are actually focused on smaller things and often competing against each other for people's attention and money. I need to hurry up because the chat just disconnected, so I feel like the YouTube stream will probably disconnect fairly quickly here. Let's see, Funko Pop collectibles are becoming a AAA platformer. I can't help but wonder if NFTs are going to be included into this game at some point. Bayonetta 3's Hideki Kamiya defends the naive Angel mode and Nintendo partnership. Despite what Bayonetta 3's new in-game nudity toggle may suggest, the franchise isn't in danger of being censored by Nintendo, argued the creator Hideki Kamiya. Which, I mean, at a certain point, it already has been. I mean, by having that mode, it opens the door, but maybe not. We'll just have to see. Leaked Roblox document shows what the company changed to secure the Chinese release. Getting a game approved in China is difficult, and the Roblox Corp and their efforts for approval have been even more difficult than normal. Yeah. It's not. This might be an interesting article if you're not aware of the situation, certainly, of how few games and how much work really has to go into changing games and kowtowing to the Chinese censorship board, which it literally is a censorship board and doesn't make any bones about it, as far as getting games approved in China. And at the end of the day, Roblox, which has been far too successful for its own good in the West, will probably not be successful at all in China. So the effort is questionable anytime a company tries to do that. And we did disconnect, but then it reconnected to YouTube, so not seeing a big thing. Well, we should wrap up anyways. Lucas Pope is releasing a mobile version of Papers, Please, which one would hope that that's just slightly visually slight visual changes and not major new features or major new story. There was an iPad version of Papers, Please around since 2014, and owners of the iPad version won't need to repurchase it. This will be the first time Papers, Please was available on Android's Google Play Store. It was also, for a brief time, banned because the game featured pixelated nudity, talking censorship again. And so to get around that, he added a disable nudity feature that was turned off by default, much like the naive angels mode. It's like, honestly, if the censorship really is just to the level of you have to have a feature to let the player censor the game on their own command, that's still a level of censorship. It's not that offensive to say, to give people have to be given choices to censor games for their own content, but it's still making an artist create some form of art they don't want to do, they don't want to make. And at a certain level, you wouldn't tell an author they have to write an edited version of their story, or that they have to allow the player write their books in such a way that you could tear out certain pages if you find them offensive. And it definitely opens the door that at some point in the future that toggle might get turned on and then the toggle might go away. Certainly. Alright, so seems like the network fixed itself. We need to activate more trap cards in the next 5 days, destroy cards in ranked, and declare attacks in ranked. I'm gonna probably be a couple days short on this. And then the festival, I need 2 more victories and a whole bunch of more special summons, and I have 2 days to do this, so I need to play a lot more festival stuff in the next 2 days. Inherently, though, I don't think we're too far off. Like, it might be a bit of a struggle to get 50 gems. The big thing is the 300 gems here. Like, if I get up to 8,000 and get 300, you're good. But if I ended at 9,000, that's not too terrible. 10,000, that's not too terrible. But ending at 11,000 is great. And going any further than that is just legacy packs. So at least one more victory to get 300 is something I definitely would want to do. But I'd like to make it to all of that point As far as legacy packs, like, we'll just quickly purchase 10 of these. We still have a massive amount of these legacy packs that are giving me some cards. That one was an ultra rare card before, but mostly it's giving me normal cards. Or at least it was. Maybe now my collection is getting full as far as normal cards, and we're starting to push our odds up in some kind of pity system to give us more ultra rares and super rares. There's still thousands upon thousands of cards I don't have, and thousands upon thousands of cards you don't really need. Let's do the fall list cleanup, then that should work fairly well. Now that the network is working again. I have this Forest of Vonalis, which I'm going to have to either make an executive decision here. It's a free-to-play game now, which I guess says just check it out. I feel like originally this was, well, obviously this was a game that wasn't free-to-play to begin with, and that's a much more difficult decision. Although, as a video game critic, my point is to make purchasing advice, and if it's a free game now, the purchasing advice is just to check this out if this looks interesting. To me personally, it kind of looks a little interesting. It also kind of feels like it might be a little asset flippy, but not that bad. Forgotten City, on the other hand, overwhelmingly positive, so that can go to the wish list very easily. I'm a little surprised I don't own that, but it also isn't that old of a game. Here, The Forgotten, on the other hand, it is mostly negative, so that can leave the fall list. And then The Forgotten Prison, I will give more time to. And then The Five Covens, I think I'll probably give more time to it. We're not getting a lot of reviewers. First Odyssey needs more time. Fall of Iscaria can leave the fall list. I don't know why that was even on the fall list, honestly. The Fabled Woods is mixed, so that can leave the fall list too. It definitely feels like we are getting to a point, though, where I'm adding more games to the fall list than I'm removing, and so we may hit a point where I need to start looking at 10 instead of 5 games on the fall list every day, but maybe. I would have to really look at the fall list and see if it's growing or not. This is a VR game. It looks pretty good. If I ever have VR headsets, I might get it, but since I probably won't, it just stays on the fall list forever. That is another danger, certainly, where the fall list could just become larger and larger with VR games alone, and I need to potentially give up on VR at that point or reconsider it. This game needs some more time. And The Evil in the Forest has no relevancy because it doesn't have at least 30 reviews, so that can leave the fall list. Alright. And that does allow me, now that the network is working again, to look at this Anno Momentium trailer. Looks like it's half adventure game, half hack and slash game. It feels like it might be a spin-off game to another game called Anno, or perhaps even a series of games called Anno. Alright, well, let me look at my Twitter feed and then we'll wrap up this stream. We're getting back to 3-hour streams, which is not terrible, as long as we don't consistently start having 4-hour streams. That was getting crazy. Cyan says, all hands on deck, Quest users. We've got something big to tell you about later this week. What could it be? What could it be? Almost certainly it's a version of Myst coming to the Oculus Quest, which I really would prefer Cyan, as the makers of the Myst series, to make a big announcement about their next game, or just announce that they're working or that I'd just like them to actually make another game, a better game. Honestly, I feel like part of the problem is that they needed to have been acquired, arguably by Ubisoft, decades ago. The people in charge of Cyan are not ambitious enough or just big enough as a business to consistently make Myst games even in a fast enough way. Honestly, most Myst fans, if you'd asked them 10 years ago, would have told you that there never would have been another Myst game at all. Right, now I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed just to see if there's anything to show. See, the Apex Legends new character, apparently this is the face model slash voice actress. I'm not sure which. And she looks very nice, very beautiful, slender, kind of square jaw, but a lot of indents here, long neckline, long hair, and then if she was the face model of who they scanned to make the character she's representing, I can't really believe that, because the nose looks completely different. This is a small kind of pointy nose. This is more of a stub nose. This jaw is rounded, where this jaw is more kind of square. Eyebrows are thicker. Eyes, like, nothing there really compares, and you can tell by the neckline and all of this that almost certainly this character is much fatter. So at that point, the question is, why bother showing a picture of the voice actress on Twitter? Why make those comparisons, or inject those comparisons, or invite those comparisons on Twitter, unless you're actively looking for controversy to complain about? Because really the picture should be, here is our new character, she's voiced by this person, you could reference her, tweet her, and then people could click on her Twitter to see what she looks like. But putting them side by side is a bad idea. It's like an idea that either an idiot chose to do, or somebody that's actively trying to have controversy. Because yes, there are going to be chauvinist people out there that are just going to go, this new character looks fat, this new character looks ugly, and particularly when you have a like fashion model picture of a real person next to it, that those comparisons are going to be easy to make. And then we can like compare this to like Warriors Orochi here. Here's two characters that are depicted as being beautiful and skinny. So it's not like you can't depict characters in video games that way. That if there was any question about that, it does very much come off as the third wave feminism, or SJWs in general, that are actively trying to push a uh, not only as big as beautiful idea down the throats of people that just are not willing to buy that thought, but that ugly is beautiful idea. Because there definitely have been pictures I've seen of people that are big and that they are ugly, and that it's a very different thing. And I don't know why I'm talking about any of this. Let's just move on. It's going to get redundant very fast. YouTube Gaming says SS Sunday has gotten 21 million subscribers. He's a fairly big, one of the top Minecraft streamers. I don't think I've watched anything with him in it or any of his videos lately, but he's obviously still growing. Meanwhile, I just want 1,000 subscribers. Like, yeah, if I could get 1,000 subscribers just to see what kind of YouTube advertising money that was, that would be interesting. But honestly, if I could get about 10,000, I'd probably be set. And at that point, I could nicely never have to look at or talk about subscribers ever again on YouTube. I don't want to be greedy. I just want something that would potentially pay the bills and give me some chance at having a retirement. That's not asking too much, in my opinion. Of course, doing that on YouTube is pretty much impossible, except for a tiny percentage of very lucky people. I'm still scrolling down my Twitter feed to see if there's anything else we didn't talk about. YouTube advertising has this article, which I question the logic here. Advertising has a vital role to play in the transition to a low carbon economy. How marketers can lead the way to net zero, which is an interesting thought. But if advertisers want to actually reduce their carbon footprint of everybody, then they would they would simply stop advertising, because the products that you're advertising almost always are increasing the carbon footprint. But also, it's one of these false narratives that get pushed that implies that anything a Western company or a Western person can do is going to really affect the carbon footprints or the garbage or the pollution problems. When you have factories just spewing toxic stuff out of China with no regulation or law, and when you have garbage being dumped into the oceans significantly all across the world, there's nothing really stopping that. U.S. Navy is a big garbage dumper as far as their submarines being dumped into the ocean too. Here's that boot time so we can watch the old boot versus the new boot. So it takes about 10 seconds now, where it's taking about 15 seconds. But again, it really just feels like the animation is hiding what is actually happening while you're cold booting. There's details here in an article from The Verge, so maybe that would load and tell us what specifically they've improved, because there might be a very interesting technology as to what sped up. Like, inherently, the contents of RAM being on a battery backup of some sort would speed up a cold boot quite a bit, although at that point it probably really wouldn't be called a cold boot. The only other thing you could really do, I think, is just reduce what needs to be tested for a known good starting state, which there probably is some room for optimization there in hardware. Yeah, the article says Xbox owners will only benefit from the speedier boot times if they have their console set to energy saver mode instead of standby mode, though. Energy saver mode means the console fully powers off instead of entering a standby state. That means you can't power on the console and immediately start playing, but energy saver is friendlier for electricity bills in the planet. Yeah. This is a bad article, though, because it's still not really telling you why something is booting up faster. Yeah, they've got a survey. Half of these surveys, though, definitely are not trying to reward you for filling out the surveys, so I'm not doing them. Or I would say more than half. Most of the surveys don't offer any kind of reward for filling them out, and they're too long in the first place. Alright, well, we had a little network hiccup in the middle of the stream, but otherwise everything is working. That being said, if there is still something going wrong with my computer, I have not been playing games on my computer enough in the past couple of weeks to test it out, so I still am in the shadow of having computer programs. I hope I'm past it, but I don't know for certain, and I just won't regain that confidence until I can play a couple of games from beginning to end, put 200-300 hours into playing PC games, which is not what I plan on doing recently. I still need to move my phone stuff over. I still need to play this festival. I still have too much on my plate for my own good. That's going to be it for this stream. Apologies to Rear Mares that we didn't get to play. Going forward, I'm going to say no to friendly plays. I will friend people, but until Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Master has a better system to actually play friends and actually reward you for playing with friends, we're just not to that point yet. That's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.